All right, let's go. So, we need a few extensions to help us out. We've spent quite a good number of minutes in the Explorer. Let's check out what else we have right here on this left column, right? We can definitely search. You can see we have quite a good number of files open. We can search within those files for particular words. We can even search and replace them for all of these files together. Let's try searching for, say, title. Title, obviously, all of these files have a title, so we can see there are 14 occurrences in 6 files. We can search for something more unique. Let's say the city of Limbe. Yes, there is a city of Limbe in one file, that's HTML demo. If you click on it, it takes you to the exact location of that. All right. You can also search for more items. Let's say USA. We didn't find that anywhere. All right. How about we search for place? And we see there's one occurrence in there. If we click, it takes us to place. Shift search for Texas too. That's how you use the search feature, and we can decide to replace with someone else. All right. Next up is the source control. We've talked already about Git and GitHub. We already installed, rather we already signed into GitHub. We need to download and install Git. So let's go ahead and click on that. Go ahead and open it. It opens the website. You can click here to download it and you're good to go. Once it's downloaded, you can go ahead and install it. While that's downloading, let's carry on. Next up is running and debugging our file. For HTML, we don't really need to run and debug it. We're going to look at an external validator file or external validator website, which is useful for search engine optimization. So let's go on to the next one. Very important is extensions. You can check out the ones you've installed. Right now, we have no extensions installed. We can check out the popular ones or the recommended ones. Visual Studio Code is a software from Microsoft, so obviously you get encouraged to use Microsoft Edge. Also, you can use GitHub Copilot that helps you to program with AI. All right, so that's useful if you really know what you're doing. For now, I'll not recommend you to jump into that route. Understand the basics. Once you get the fundamentals, everything will be fun, and you should be able to use AI to pair with your programming. Let's look at some popular ones. We are not working with Python, but we definitely need the live server. The live server is going to help us to automatically reload our web pages, so I don't have to go ahead and refresh each time. So let's go ahead and click on install. First, let's click on it. Clicking on it gives you details about that particular extension. You can check out the features, the change log, and so on and so forth, but we're going to simply install it. Each time it gets updated, it will be updated automatically because we have that checkbox in there. So this is exactly how it works on here. Once you make changes to your code, it updates instantly, so you don't have to refresh it. So we definitely do need that. All right. Next up is Prettier. Prettier is going to help us format our code. It's not only useful for HTML, it's also useful for JavaScript, CSS, and a lot of other programming languages. So if your code is not looking very good, it's going to go ahead and format it so that it's tabbed and very, very easy to read. Everybody else is going to be happy with you on your team once your code is easy to read. So let's go ahead and install that. Those are two things we've already added, two extensions, live server and Prettier. That's good for now. And we also have GitHub. Sorry, we also have Git installed, or rather downloading. Once everything is good to go, we should be just fine. So live server looks like it's good to go. And yep, you can read up on more about it on there. And once you've installed live server, which shows up right now as installed in our installed software, let's go back to my website, and you'll be able to see at the bottom right now says code live. So when you click on it, you should be able to open up your HTML document live. We can't really use Prettier right now because our code already looks good. If we need to uninstall it, we can come back and uninstall it. I wouldn't recommend you do that. Let's go back to my site and go from there. Close this extension. Here is my site. Let's click on go live. It starts up automatically. We need to allow it access. Private networks at home, yeah, might as well allow access. And now you can see it opens up using this URL. So this is the IP address of the server. Remember, the client and the server. The server is where our file is going to be located. So let's look at it side by side. Hide this, and instead of having Hello Africa, let's change it to Hello World. And you can see it updated right there. Hello World. We can add more stuff like Bonjour Paris, and it goes up right away. If we needed to add a breakpoint, we can add a breakpoint, and now Bonjour Paris is there. We can go ahead and add another paragraph this time around and say Aloha Hawaii. And now we have Aloha Hawaii. And just like that, you can continue programming with live server and everything should work just fine. All right, so let's dive back in and look at some demos. Before I forget, we've gone ahead and installed the live server, but we also did download Git. So let's go into Git and try to make sure that it's installed. Okay, so here is the downloaded Git. Double clicking on it is going to carry on with the installation. Yes, we do want to install Git for Windows, and follow the instructions as we normally do with any other software that we download. Maybe we need to add an additional icon on the desktop. That's totally fine. And very soon our desktop is going to get crowded. You don't need to browse, just leave everything as default. And we need to create the startup menu for the folder. Everything looks just good. Now, depending on your default editor, do you want to use Vim or Visual Studio Code? So we want to use Visual Studio Code as a default editor. There are many editors out there, depends on you. Preferably, or personally, I prefer Visual Studio Code to use that as my default editor as we've been using. But like I said, you could use Atom, Sublime, Vim, Notepad++, WordPad, but I personally like Visual Studio Code because it works seamlessly with other languages, and everything else I've been using, it's been quite good for me. So let's move on from there. Next, we're just gonna let Git decide, because we want our repositories to have nothing peculiar. Okay, but if you're working in a, say, an enterprise or corporate environment, there might be some particular standards that you need to follow. This is just a fun home project, so I'm going to leave everything as is. And we don't want to use only Git bash only. We'll go with the recommendation. That's totally fine. And bundle with OpenSSH, that's fine as well. And OpenSSL library, could go ahead and use that. Check out Windows style commit, blah blah blah. Yep. And default console, again, all of these are just default notifications. We're going to leave everything correct the way it is. We can go back and make the changes later on if necessary, but once all of that is selected, you install it and you should be good to go. Should be quite fast and quick to get it installed. And once you're done installing, then you go ahead with actually, I think I should go ahead and show you some of the things that you can do with Git. But again, there's an official video out there from Visual Studio Code on how to use Git with your within Visual Studio Code. I can forward that to you as well. We don't need to launch it. Everything should be good to go. Once it's finished, we will need to restart this. Once we restart Visual Studio Code and we come back now to source control, you should be able to see an option that asks you to initialize your folder. The folders that we've been using, we can now go ahead and initialize this folder and say, hey, I want you to keep track of every file in this folder so that each time we make changes, we don't have to rename and so on and so forth. We can always go back to older versions and get newer versions. Maybe you need to read on some of the change notes. Documentation is very useful. I highly recommend it. And that's about it. All right. So let's go back to our HTML file and carry on with the demonstrations as well as your activities, lab activities, and homework so you can practice, because the key with coding and the key with anything else in life is practice, practice, practice. Whether you're in sports or you're writing code or you're dancing or you're an actor, you need to practice to get better. All right, let's carry on.